I am now warmed up. Let us talk about what we're going to do today. Main topic is, of course, going to be the European Championship. We're going to talk about the results. We're going to talk about what happened. We're going to talk about the people that are going to Worlds this year, which, spoilers, I'm pretty happy with the people that are qualified for Worlds this year. I think Team Europe is looking very strong this year. But also my personal experience at the European Championship, of course, because I was there. I played not only the main event, but I also played the World Championship qualifiers on the Friday. Obviously didn't make it through, but it's all good because I am already qualified for the Macedool World Championship, so it was a very first world problem to begin with. The fact that I was still, like, try-harding for Euros. It's like, the way I see it, out of all the years where I could have bombed Euros and not done well, this was probably the best one because I can fall back on the Macedool qualification. I still cared about the European Championship because it is the European Championship, right? I still really wanted to win it. Obviously didn't go too well this year. I played the qualifiers for Worlds on Friday. It was very cool that I qualified for it, but it was also very stressful on top of, having to prepare for the regular European Championship to also prepare for that. I had a very hard time, on my mind of just being like, hey, you're already qualified for Macedool, so just this thing isn't that important, so you don't have to stress about it. I still stressed about it. When I'm thrown into a tournament of that caliber, right, with players of that caliber, I just can't help but try to do as well as I can. I'm just too competitive of a nature to just be like, yeah, it's not that important. I'm not gonna care about it. So I personally still really wanted to, prove my worth, kind of, to try and see if I could qualify in that one as well. So I played the qualifiers on Friday, and I brought a different deck to the qualifier on Friday than I brought to the main event. I'll just show you what I played for the playoffs real quick and explain to you, because it's gonna look very weird at first. In the playoffs, I played this. I think this version of the deck is very interesting. What you'll notice is that Fossil Dick is gone, Beat, Rafale, and Rookie are also gone. So if you compare this to the standard for hire deck, it works completely differently. The idea was basically, I was a big fan of for hire, but I didn't like a few things. I didn't like how you needed to draw Rex. I was also not a fan of, you don't really like starter and jet as much, because the lock actually really affects you, because if you have to lock yourself early in the combo, because let's say you don't draw Rex, you have to gigantic for it, you can't use Beat, Rookie, Rafale, all your stuff. The same is true for if you have to use starter early. If you happen to draw starter or jet and you are forced to use it early, you are locked out of the most powerful plays in the other deck. So what I did for this version basically is I adjusted the plan a little bit to a point where you don't actually need to draw Rex, because what this deck does is, on your first turn, you either, if you draw Rex, you gigantic for Hyperia just for the free +1, and if you don't draw Rex, let's say you draw Hyperia instead, you normal summon Hyperia and then you gigantic to summon Rex. And what you do is you search Mayhem, you make IP Masquerena plus whatever you can, right? Very often, because you play a very high sprite count, you can set up red and carrot, or you can set up Djinn Buster. So what you end on is basically IP red carrot Djinn Buster, something like that. You just make the fall go on the opponent's turn, summon Dawnpa from the deck, and then you Mayhem back the Rex, pop a card with Dawnpa, draw 3 cards, search a follow-up Mayhem. If you pulled through that combo, you just win the game, because you draw 7 cards or some shit. Isn't it way worse going second? I don't think that's true at all. Going second, it's really hard to resolve Beat, Rafale, Rookie. I think this version is better going second than the other one, because it has full gasp. This deck has no bricks, basically. Second Folgo in this version doesn't seem necessary. The second Folgo is a flex spot. The reason I played it is because if you get Even Lead or Unicorn, you can lose because of it. The fur hires feel like bricks going second. I mean, Rex is still just a normal summon that goes +1 into a card that's an extender. Dawnpa is okay going second because you just summon Dawnpa. If you have Rex, it's really good. If you don't have Rex, you just make Donner next to it. You still pop a card. Mayhem is the worst card in the deck to draw going second. That's the only one. But that one is fine as long as you draw Rex, Dawnpa, or you can resolve Gigantic. Overall, I think this deck was fine for playoffs. Maybe I should have played it in the main event. I liked it because it was very consistent. You compare this to the other version, you can play so many more sprite cards. It's not just 2 extra sprites. The difference is not only that you play more, it's also that you can use them a lot more freely because you don't have to care about locking yourself early, right? Is this better into draw? This is better into draw because it can use starter in the draw phase to summon red. I did that a lot of times. How was Azalea? Azalea was good. I made it a couple times. Basically, this version of the deck I think has potential, but I had the idea a little bit too late, I think. The version might need some more practice. The version might need some more adjusting. To boil it down, the idea was basically that this deck plays very similarly to the deck I won YCS Utrecht with, because you basically play full power runic sprite, like max out on the sprite package, max out on the runic package, so it's like very consistent. The fur hires just solve the problem that you have with follow-up now. The only thing that we're really missing from the Utrecht deck is Elf, which is only really responsible for follow-up and for some amount of disruption maybe on the opponent's turn. And so the fur hires do that, right? If you have the fur hires in the deck, you get a disruption on the opponent's turn from IP into Folgo, plus you have insane follow-up, because you don't need Elf for follow-up in this version. Your follow-up here is insane, because as soon as you have Folgo, Rex, and Donpa in rotation, you can draw 3 cards pretty much on the next turn again. Let's say even if your opponent clears your entire board, as long as the stuff ends up in the graveyard, you can just go Donner, bring back Donpa and Folgo. Use Donpa to destroy a card. Folgo will trigger. You chain Rex in the graveyard, banish it, revive Donner, and you draw 3 cards. That's basically your follow-up in this version. So even if your entire board gets broken, you can pop a card, draw 3 on the next turn again. So that's what I played in the playoffs, and maybe I should have pulled through for the main event. Because to be clear, the games I lost in the playoffs, I think I would have lost with any runic version. I'm pretty sure. Round 1, I beat Kashtira. Round 2, I lost to Branded, which Branded is a hard matchup for any runic version. With the hands that they had in round number 2, I don't think it would have made a difference really for me which version of runic I would have played. I think I would lose to the Branded player anyways. Round 3, I beat Yoho, Labyrinth. Runic just destroys Labyrinth. That's just not that much of a surprise. And then in round 4, I lost to Nico Schlierkamp, who's playing Life Twin Runic Sprite. And the thing is that I lost the dice roll, and going second in runic mirrors is just really, really hard. Also, once again, doesn't really matter which runic version you're playing, the matchup is really hard if you go second. And then round 5, I beat Kashtira again. So in the playoffs, I feel like the deck performed as well as it could have. I think any other runic version would have done pretty much the same thing. I would have still lost to Branded, and I would have probably still lost to Nico because I lost the dice roll and he played it well and he drew well. I also gave it to one of the people I had coaching with. I gave them this list and they played something very similar for Oceanics, and they topped Oceanics as well. So at least some proof of concept there. Yeah, and then the thing is, I focused so much on the playoffs. The playoffs were done by Friday 5 p.m. or something. And then I realized, dude, I only have 2 more hours to submit my deck for the main event. And at that point, I hadn't actually made my mind up about what I wanted to play at the main event. So I was kind of sitting there. I was tired from preparing for playoffs and playing playoffs, right? Because I played really focused. And then I suddenly only had 2 hours to submit a deck for the main event. And so I sat down with the other people. I was kind of thrown back to square one, because the deck, while I was okay with how I did in the playoffs, right? 3-2, it was okay. I wasn't mad or anything. I wasn't sad about my performance. It was a decent performance. I was completely okay with it. But the deck also didn't like overperform, right? It wasn't like I was super happy and I was super certain that I found something great here. So I was kind of back to square one, where I was like, what am I going to play for the main event now? Am I going to go back to standard for hire runic sprite, or am I just going to play Life Twin maybe? Because I talked to some other people like Ben, Nico, who were also in the playoffs, and they all decided to go with Life Twin for the main event, because they were like, hey, we have 2 buys, all we have to do is like go like 7-2 over the 9 Swiss rounds. I just want to play a consistent deck that does that. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. So in the end, I decided to not follow through on this version, which maybe was a mistake. I decided to play this for the main event, which was basically an updated version of Life Twin Runic Sprite. And I will say, I was very happy with the list that I used for the main event. Looking back, I'm not so happy that I picked Life Twins, because I am convinced that there's a couple games in there that I probably win if it is for hire. I think I should have kept playing for hire, either the one from the playoff or the standard version, but it's fine. As far as this list goes, I think for Life Twin Runic Sprite, I think the main deck is pretty much optimal. So what I did was I decided to split the non-engine into 2 thrust, 1 talent, 2 evenly, which I think was the best way to do it in this current format. I like talents too much to not play it at all. I like the fact that with 2 thrust, you get to play basically still 3 copies of Talons. Evenly, in my opinion, was the best non-engine card against Kashtira in general, and then it also gives you, I think, the best chances in the mirror match. I think it's the best and probably also the only way to consistently have a chance in the mirror going second, because you can force it through relatively easily by just like using a runic on carrot in the battle phase and then evenly them. The reason I played the secret password is because I played thrust. I wanted one target for thrust that can get me to engine, because what if I have evenly already but I don't have a life twin, then thrust can get me the password. I think that was a okay decision. I never thrusted for password the entire event, but I still think the option was okay. It was risky because of Droll. I felt like it was worth the risk for the thrusts. What do you search it with thrust when you're hand trapped going first? It's funny because what you can actually do if you get hand trapped going first is you can mannequin cat the hand trap and then you can still thrust to search talents. That's why I felt like you didn't need a trap card for thrust. There's 2 things you can do with thrust going first. You either discard it for yugioh, or you just give them their hand trap with Mannequin Cat, and then you can just thrust for talents. The main deck I felt like was perfect. I was a big fan of 17 runic spells. It felt very consistent in terms of the runic spells. I still lost games because I didn't draw enough runics, but it's just how it is sometimes. And then we have 5 non-engine, but I really like that with thrust, you still get to play basically 4 evenlies and 3 talents. The side deck I was really happy with, except for Reaper. Reaper I didn't really perform. Reaper was Nico's idea, and I think it was actually okay to play it, but it just didn't perform for me. The idea was you can side it in the mirror match, and you just take away one of the twins, and it completely ruins their grind games. If you can clear their board, if you take away one of the twins, they basically can't play the game anymore, which is fair. Or you can sometimes take away yugioh. Let's say they start with Lila, summon another twin, activate a runic. You can activate cherries. If they chain another runic because they're afraid of losing yugioh, you just take the pink evil twin. Or if they don't chain another runic, you can just take the yugioh and then they never get to fountain. And the second thing is you can side it against sprites and then you don't get Iblied because you just take gigantic and they can't get to Ibli. The reality was in day 1, I did not play against a single sprite. I played against life twins, runic sprite. I played against that, but I didn't play against pure sprite at all. I did draw Reaper against the life twin mirror, and I Reapered the pink twin. The problem was I still lost to fountain, red carrot, and whatnot. But everything else was fine because the format is really diverse, but thrust, talents, evenly, duster, dark hole pretty much covers everything anyways. I felt really comfortable in every matchup. Like, you don't need to side much more against Kashtira with this version. The only deck that you don't have as much in the side against is Branded. Every other matchup, the side deck is perfect for. Darkhold was here as a thrust target, and because of Ibli, I was scared of Ibli. Did you play against D-Link? And if so, how did that go? I played against 2 D-Links. Yeah, I beat both of the Dragon Links I played against. Dragon Link is not that bad of a matchup for this deck. It's pretty good. Mistaken Arrest was completely insane, by the way. The idea of this card is that after siding, when you know you go first, there's a couple of things you can lose to, but not that many. One of them can be Dark Ruler, Evenly, Shifter, these types of cards. And whenever you get hit with those cards, you can just mistaken arrest them, and it's just completely insane. A mistaken arrest pretty much completely kills Kashtira. It completely kills the mirror match because no blue, no jet, no Hugin, no tip. It's completely busted. Nets made a misplay that cost him versus you. That is true. I played against Nets in round 6. He was on Dragon Link and he would have won game 3. I made Griffin going first and he comboed through my board, but then he summoned the Dispatter in the wrong zone, so it wasn't linked, and then he couldn't activate it, and then he lost because of it. But he would have won, yeah. So the way it went is I was 6-0. I was really happy with everything. I was feeling good, and then in round 7, I played against Kashtira, the Italian national champion this year, who was also in the playoffs. They were on Kashtira. I went second game 1. I evenly them, and I win after. It's like, if you evenly Kashtira with this deck, it's relatively easy to win. So I win game 1. I had evenly again in game 2. It was really frustrating because they went first. They did the full combo, including Prosperity, and they Prosperity'd into set rotation. And then they activated set rotation and they gave themselves Secret Village and they made Big Eye, which was kind of crazy. The problem, though, was that normally evenly matched beats Secret Village. Because it was specifically set rotation, I couldn't evenly. The more frustrating thing is they didn't even end on a Rysart. So if I just have, like, I don't know, a twin plus a sprite, I can still play because they literally just had... They made Big Eye Shangri-Ira Secret Village pass. But I only had 1 monster, 4 spells, and evenly. So because of the set rotation specifically, I got destroyed. Game 3, I went first. They shifted me. So I ended on Mannequin Cat, Gigantic, Red, and Carrot. I also had Destruction and Flashing Fire. So I was feeling okay about it, but turns out they played, and I saw this for the first time in that game, they played a very different Kashtira deck because they played the Scareclaw cards. They played the Scareclaw Field Spell and Scareclaw Reich card and whatnot, and like the Reich Phobia thingy, so they had a lot more options on their shifter. They were able to normal summon Rysard, go into Donner. I had to pop Donner with Flashing Fire, and then they had Special Unicorn and all that stuff. That was one game where I made a misplay. I think I could have won it. They activated the, what's it called? The Scareclaw Field Spell. I didn't want to Destruction it because I wanted to keep Destruction for Birth because I was afraid that Birth was going to make them able to play. So I didn't use Destruction on the Field Spell, but I forgot because it was Italian. I didn't read it. The Field Spell has an effect that it can pop a card if there's 3 monsters in defense position. And because I summoned everything in defense, they could pop a card. And I didn't know that. I forgot that it had that, which is completely on me. It's completely my mistake. So I should have Destructioned it. I think I lost because of it, because then he went Reich Phobia effect to destroy, target Destruction. I'm like, okay, well, now it's gone, right? So that was completely on me. But I was, at this point, I was still 6-1. And then round 7 and round 9, 100%, I don't think I could have done anything differently. Round 8, I play against Branded. I win the dice roll. Game 1, I go first, I full combo, but I have 0 runics in hand because I opened 2 life twins. Fountain draws me 2 more life twins. And then on their turn, I use Frost to draw a card and I draw another Fountain. So I had like 5 cards in hand, 0 runics. On top of all that, their hand was like Dark Ruler, Fusion Deployment, Branded Fusion. That's already enough, right? Like I said, I had no backup runics at all. 0. So that was game 1. And then game 2, I went first again. This time, I think my hand was a little bit better, but unfortunately, I didn't draw Ash or Mistaken Arrest. I just made my normal board. This time, I had a couple runics though, but this time they went Super Poly on IP plus the Evil Twin. They made a Mud Dragon, so I couldn't target their shit, which turned off pretty much all my runics. For Super Poly, they discarded Retribution. They had, I think, Fusion Deployment again. Aluber, I couldn't play, basically. In round 8, I just got completely stomped. And then in round 9, I played against Kashtira again. I think I won game 1. I lost game 2. And then game 3, they made me go first, which meant I didn't have Arrest in my deck, so I couldn't open it. I opened it evenly, but I just discarded it for Hugin. That was okay. But I got shifted again, and they just played through my board. I don't remember exactly what happened in game 3 there, but I got shifted again. It didn't set up much and just lost. So it was round 8 and 9 were not winnable, I think. I think the list was fine. If you're gonna play Life Twin Runic Sprite, I would highly recommend this version. I was a very big fan of it. The thrust talents evenly split was great. I think the side deck was great, except for the cherries. I think you can replace the cherries. Maybe if you want to respect Branded more, you can side Grave of the Super Ancient Organism instead. Going back, that's what I probably should have done. Maybe I should have respected Branded a little bit more, although I will say Branded was not that represented. No, I like the list, but it was just an unfortunate weekend. My personal takeaway from this Euros is that I think I could have played a better deck for the main event. I don't think I should have played Life Twin. I think I lost a lot of the games that I lost because the deck was a little bit too fair compared to Furhires. My takeaway is I should have just pulled through with Furhire, but it's fine. I'm feeling okay about it because, like I said earlier, this year was the year that technically the European Championship didn't matter as much to me. It still practically mattered a lot, and I felt really bad about not being able to make it into top 64 and trying to win it and everything. I felt bad about it. But then this year I have the fallback on the Master Duel World Championships. All right. Let's talk about... We're sending to Worlds Jonas Koschel, Gabriel Susi, and Dinka Bui. I think very, very good representation for Europe. Out of the people in the playoffs, I think definitely 3 of the best, in my opinion. I was especially happy for Dinka Bui because I think had he gotten 4th in 2 consecutive Worlds playoffs, that would not have been deserved at all. I would even argue out of all the 32 players in the playoff, it was probably Dinka Bui who deserved to go the most. And then for the main event, we also have great representatives. We have Oliver, Christian, Yoho, and Jessica. Personally, I was very, very happy with these representatives as well, especially after Christian went 4-1 in the Worlds playoff and got 5th place, and they cut to top 4. So that was already really, really rough on the Friday for Christian. I was very happy that he was able to make it through to the finals. And Jessica as well, I think very, very deserving because she has been rocking the plant deck for months now. Probably years. And also after the finals, I told her, thank you for your contribution for the anti-plant movement. We are going to use the momentum from this victory to get the plants out of this game. To which she responded, plants for life. And I said, no, not plants for life. I said, maybe plants for a couple more months. All right. But yeah, huge congratulations to everyone who made it to Worlds. I think Team Europe is looking strong this year. I have some hopes that maybe this year we can bring it to Europe with one of these players. All right, at the beginning of day one, I would argue this breakdown is pretty much what I would have expected. We had Kashtira, most represented deck, fair enough. Runic variants after that, I personally find that very understandable. Dragon Link was relatively popular, even more than like Sprite, Labyrinth, and Branded. I'm not sure if I would have expected that. Sprite, Labyrinth, Branded, fairly represented. Vanquish Souls, unfortunately, I don't think Vanquish Soul performed super well. I think one made it into top 32. And then we had some Rikas and some Fluanderies. So overall, a breakdown, also the top cut breakdown, that is a lot less diverse than you might have expected, judging from like the national top cuts, right? But I do think we are approaching a time in this format where the best decks have quote-unquote just crystallized themselves. Like Kashtira, Runic, Dragon Link, those types of decks, they've just been performing more consistently and better than all the other decks, I feel like. And Rika to an extent too. Rika is converting really well, right? They have a play rate of 4%, but a top cut rate of 7.8, which is really strong. People probably still refuse to read Loci, or people don't know how to play against it, or it's just like the deck is, I think, relatively hard to play really well. Pulling off your standard first turn combo is probably as easy as it gets, but as soon as you get like hand trapped in different spots or you have to go second into different boards, I think that where it really becomes hard to play Rika. That's also maybe why people are afraid of using it as well. More and more people cutting hand traps and putting in more engine or board breakers, which is good for Rika. That is also true. Rika is well positioned in some ways. Like, for example, Rika, I think, has a solid matchup against Runic decks because Runic decks are most likely going to be on board breakers. They just don't do much against the full Rika combo because it's got like multiple Omni negates, disruption from graveyard, all that stuff. Rika sheet. Evenly is really good if it resolves. Yeah, have fun resolving evenly against Rika. They have like 2 or 3 Omnis. Anyways, I am not going to spend another stream on talking about why Rika did well and why it won Euros again. I think it's kind of crazy that the same deck won Euros back to back and a lot of people still don't know how to play against it. Runic was decent, but 14% representation into 10% top cut isn't that great. Kashtira's conversion rate was a lot better than Runic this time. I will admit I'm a little bit disappointed by Runic's performance. Dragons kind of popped off, but Runic's didn't. I don't know what the reason for that is. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm asking myself whether I should have played a different deck. However, on second thought, even if I reach the conclusion that Runic isn't it, I don't know what else I would have played. Because out of all these decks here that did top, I still think I like Runic the most. I think I should have just played for higher. You would crush with Kashtira, I'll be honest. I'd probably do okay with Kashtira too. Maybe looking back at the season, I wasted a little bit of possible, like, you know, results by not playing Kashtira ever. Maybe I should have, but I don't know. I'm okay. At the end of the day, hindsight is hindsight. I personally think this meta is pretty much as we expected it. Conversion rates also, I personally expected a higher conversion rate on Runics, but proven wrong here. Everything else pretty much as expected. Moving into NAWCQ, I'm not sure exactly what this means. Like, I'm not sure what I would recommend to people right now. I think Kashtira is still a solid pick. Dragon Link is a solid pick. I still like Runic. I don't know why Flunder is here, to be honest. I just realized that Flunder has almost as many tops as Runic decks, which is kind of crazy. Labyrinth kind of fell off in the main event. I think it's a little bit due to the popularity of Runic as well. Maybe a lot of these numbers are related to the amount of Runics. Like Flunderies also, unironically, is not a good matchup for Runic. It's really hard to out their shit without battle phases because you can't flashing fire any of their stuff. Furhire can be okay against Flunder, but with Life Twins, god damn is it hard to out Empens. So yeah, it's understandable, I think, why Fluanderies did well in a field of Runic, Cash, and it's also good against Dragon Link, I think, because they have the Bystials and Flunder doesn't care. It's just the good old Flunder is good, but it breaks, which is why it tops but doesn't win. Well, yeah, interesting event, interesting event. Not many surprises.